Hello everybody, welcome to my YouTube channel Super Sessions by Dr. Jagose. Today I'll be dealing with second prescription, the first part. I've divided into two parts. Part 1 will contain the first 4 points of second prescription and second part will contain the remaining. So let us see what this video has in store for us today. Well, you can define it is the one after the first prescription is correct, it has acted and it has been left alone. So this is very important. The first prescription, it should be a correct one. Then secondly, it should have acted and after the action, it has to be left alone. So this is very important. Why? Because we'll see in the next point. If the first prescription has not acted curatively or it is not permitted to act the full time, it is impossible to get a second observation. So therefore, you have to give it enough time for the first prescription to act. Then only you'll be able to observe what changes have occurred, and then only you'll be able to get a second good observation. If status quo after the administration of the first prescription, then the next remedy given is still called the first prescription. However, if there is no reaction after the first prescription, then whatever remedy you give next, that will be also known as the first prescription. Now let me make it a bit more clear to you. When we give the first prescription, it is taken for granted that it is correct, it has acted, and it has been left alone for us to see the observation. So if after giving the first prescription, the patient comes to you saying that he is in a status quo or there is no relief whatsoever, so the physician will again give the second medicine. This second medicine is also known as the first prescription. However, if the patient comes to you saying that he is either aggravated or ameliorated, that means some change has occurred after the administration of the first prescription, then the second prescription, then the next remedy which the physician is giving is known as the second prescription. Why? Because there has been some change, either an aggravation or an amelioration. So if no change occurs, if the patient is status quo as what he was for the first time when he has seen you, the second remedy which the physician gives, that will still be the first prescription. So please kindly remember this. So the remedy has to act in some way after the first prescription, then only the next remedy given will be called the second prescription. So in short, please remember that after the first prescription, there should be some sort of an action of the medicine on the organism or on the patient in order to label it as the second prescription when we give the second remedy. So now let us see some more points about it as an introduction. Well, the difficulty arises when the patient changes the doctor. So if the patient is not satisfied with the doctor, he goes from one doctor to the other doctor and he changes the doctor. So why does the difficulty arise? Because in the first examination, the records of the patient have to be carefully studied. So the difficulty will come because the second doctor does not know what remedy has been given in the first examination. This only the first doctor will come to know because he has taken the full case, he has carefully studied the case, he has carefully examined the case, and he has given the medicine. Thus, the first physician only will be competent enough to make the second prescription. So technically, if you see, the first physician will be most competent enough to make the second prescription as compared to the second doctor who the patient has gone to. Therefore, the second physician whom the patient has consulted will not be in a good position to make the second prescription, no matter how much materia medica he knows. So the second doctor whom the patient has gone to, he could have a very good knowledge of materia medica, but still he will not be able in a position to examine the patient properly because he doesn't know what first prescription the patient has been given by the first doctor. The medicine that has partly cured the patient can often finish it, and the medicine should not be changed until there's a good reason for changing it. So therefore, in the first doctor has given the medicine and it has partly cured the patient, And the doctor probably was in a hurry. He did not want to wait for a sufficiently long time in order so that the medicine can properly unfold its action and finish off the cure. And the medicine should not be changed until the good reason for changing it. Or it's quite possible that the physician, he was in a hurry. The first prescription or the first remedy what he had given, it only partially cured the patient. The physician did not give enough time for the medicine to complete its action, and he was in a hurry, so he changed the prescription. Therefore, the full record keeping of the patient from the previous doctor has to be brought in order to perceive the case correctly. So, if the second doctor wants to make a good prescription or a good second prescription, the full record from the first doctor has to be made available to the second doctor. It is only after a tedious and thorough inspection of all the symptoms that an intelligent physician will be capable of making a second prescription. So therefore, if you have the full record keeping of the first doctor, and if you carefully, meticulously go through the whole case and you classify or you analyze and evaluate the symptoms, then only an intelligent physician will be capable of making a good second prescription. Thus, if the first prescription has been beneficial, it should be allowed to act to its fullest extent. So therefore, the first prescription given by the first doctor, it had made a good effect, but the doctor was in a hurry. He did not give enough time for the medicine to act completely, and he was in such a hurry that he had also changed the medicine. As a result of which, the case got spoiled and the patient was not happy, so the patient changed the doctor and went to the second homeopathic physician. So how will the second physician be in a position to judge this? Well, the rule is to judge how many symptoms have been removed by the first correct prescription and what changes have occurred. So you have to see, the second physician has to judge that after he has been to the first physician, how many symptoms have been ameliorated and what symptoms are still remaining. However, only common and trivial symptoms may still remain. So the majority or the chunk of the symptoms which were harassing the patient, they had completely disappeared under the action of the first prescription, but still some symptoms remain. These symptoms are known as common or trivial symptoms. So don't be in a hurry to prescribe, but wait for the return of the symptoms and then prescribe. So therefore, do not be in a hurry, just wait and watch, see if there's a return of any symptoms, and then only you can prescribe. Therefore, early repetition and long continued giving of the same medicine will prevent an opportunity for making the second prescription. So therefore, if you are in a hurry and if you have repeated the medicine without giving enough time for the action to continue, or you have given the medicine for a long period of time in multiple dose stimulation, then this will prevent you from observing the symptomatology, what has disappeared and what has remained. So if the doctor administers a well-chosen remedy and repeats it too soon, he never gets a symptom a chance to come back and call for a second prescription. So therefore, if the doctor, he administers the remedy, which is well chosen, which is correct, but he has repeated it too soon, then he never gives a chance for the symptoms to come back, which will cause for a second prescription. That means what enough time has to be given to see what effect the first prescription had, and to see whether they are the return of the old symptoms, whether the return of the new symptoms, and so on and so forth. Then only you will be able to prescribe. If enough time is given, say for example days, weeks, or even months, one can really make an observation upon the return of original symptoms, which is the first thing to be considered. So this is very, very important. So after giving the first prescription, just wait for days, weeks, or month and observe and see whether there's a return of the original symptoms, which is the most important thing to consider for the second prescription. If, however, new symptoms come up while treating the patient, at once see the pathogenesis and see if the symptoms belong to the drug administered, patient is proving the drug. However, if enough time is given and instead of the return of the original symptoms, you're getting the return of the, not return rather, you're getting new symptoms coming up in a case. So therefore, if new symptoms come up in the case and the patient has said that, doctor, these new symptoms I haven't experienced before. This is the first time these symptoms have occurred after I've taken the medicine which you had given me. So take this hint from the patient and see whether these new symptoms are in the pathogenesis of the drug. And if so, then you know that the patient is proving the drug and you're on the wrong track. So now let us see what it includes. It includes, second prescription includes repetition of the first, change of potency, change of remedy, use of antidote, alterations of remedies, use of integrant remedies, use of isopathy and nosodes, use of miasmatic remedies, and indications for use of placebo. So in this video, I'll be only discussing the first 4 points, and points number 5 to 9 will be done in the part 2. Now what I've underlined here, basically it will tell you these points Kent has taken up in his lectures and has only explained these 3 points. The other points are given from other reference books which I have referred to. So now let us see the first point, repetition of the first. So the only indication of repetition of the first remedy is indicated when the symptoms that have disappeared under the influence of the remedy again reappear. That means you are given the first prescription or the first remedy and the symptoms have disappeared. And after disappearing, again after a few days, the symptoms have again reappeared. So when the symptoms again reappear, that is the only indication to repeat the first remedy. So you're giving, for example, in a case, 1 dose, wait and watch, patient is better, 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 better. Fine, you give a placebo. But again, a point in time will come maybe when the patient is not better and whatever symptoms he had in the first interview when you had seen him, the symptoms again reappear. So it just shows that this is the time now to again repeat the first remedy. Remember that the repetition should be done in the same potency and also in the same dosage as the first prescription. So whatever potency you have used before and the same repetition, that pattern should be also followed. A mere cessation of progress of the case is not the indication for repetition. So please keep that in mind, that if the case progresses and suddenly the case stops, there is no further progress. So please remember, cessation of progress of the case is not an indication for repetition. The only indication of repetition is that when the symptoms have disappeared under the action of the first remedy, they again reappear, then only it is an indication of repetition. So therefore, please remember that a mere cessation of progress of the case is not an indication for repetition. Also, in the appearance of old symptoms, do not repeat the first remedy. So after you give the first prescription and the old symptoms reappear, give enough time for the symptoms to execute its action. So do not repeat it. If it persists and does not disappear on their own accord, then only repeat the first remedy. However, old symptoms, when they come back, generally a placebo is given and on its own course, the old symptoms will fade away. It could be a very rare instance when the old symptoms, they do not disappear, they sometimes become obstinate. So in such cases, you again have to repeat the first remedy. But this is of a rare occurrence. Now, change of potency. It is indicated when the remedy has exhausted its action and is not capable of producing any further beneficial action. So when do we change the potency? Number 1, when the remedy has exhausted its action. That means what? You have given, say, for example, 13 potency, and it is not capable, the same remedy is not capable of executing any further improvement in the patient. So it is difficult to judge in the hands of beginners, but it is easily done in the hands of experienced homeopathic physician. So therefore, in the hands of beginners or people or doctors who have just passed out from homeopathic colleges, it will be difficult for them to judge when the remedy has exhausted its action completely. So therefore, in the hands of beginners, what they should do, they should repeat the potency and they should see whether improvement is occurring or not. If the improvement stops, in order to confirm your judgment, you again repeat the same potency and again see whether any improvement is taking place or not. So after you repeat the same potency, if no improvement has taken, you are now quite sure that the remedy has exhausted its action and is not capable of producing any further beneficial action. So this is the time when you can change the potency. However, in the hands of experienced physicians, they will be able to judge it very fast and change the potency. So a judgment of the case and the reaction observed has to be absolutely correct for the good result. So therefore, naturally, so your judgment should be perfect, and whatever observations are there on the reaction, that also has to be perfect in order to get a good result. However, before going over to the next higher potency, try multiple dose stimulation of the same potency. So suppose you have given one, say a 30th potency only in one dose, and the patient is not improving, you again repeating the same medicine in the 30th potency one dose, again no improvement. So before changing to the next high potency, just repeat it twice a day or 3 times a day and generally see whether any effect takes place. So generally, if you repeat it, most probably the effect will take place. When the highest potency in a particular scale has been reached and the scale no longer improves, again start with the low potency. So it may be that you're treating a complicated case and which requires a series of potencies, and each time you are increasing the potency, and each time after you increase the potency, the patient has improved to some extent. And then you have reached the highest potency, and after that, there is no further potency to go to. So therefore, in such instances, again go back to the low potency. That means again start from the 30th potency. By doing so, this will establish the reaction and the case will progress further in a positive direction. So remember that also, when you have exhausted all the potencies and you have come up to the highest potencies, there is no further scope for a further higher potency because it doesn't exist, then at that time you go to the lower potency again. The reaction will be observed, or reaction will be set in a positive direction. When you employ nosode in low potency, which causes an undesirable aggravation, then administer the next highest potency, which will help. So suppose you have given a nosode, and generally nosodes are given in a high potency, but for some instance of some condition, you have given it in a low potency, which causes an undesirable aggravation. Then, in order to combat that aggravation, you have to administer it in the next highest potency. That will help. However, the views of Roberts and Kent's have to be kept in mind regarding the change of potency. So Robert has, in my previous videos also, I have told you that Robert has said that as long as the potency is helping the patient, do not change the potency. Kent has said that do not repeat the same potency for more than 2 times. Now, change of remedy. Third point. The main indication for change of remedy is that when symptoms change, the remedy changes, provided the patient has not improved. Now, this is very, very important. So, the main indication of change of remedy is that when the symptom change, you change the remedy. Not only that, another important clause is that provided the patient has not improved. So, if the symptoms change and the patient is not improved and the patient is getting worse, that time you have to change the remedy. However, the change in symptomatology has to be in a definite order in order to change the remedy. So a minor change in the symptoms have to be ignored. Only major changes have to be taken into consideration. So thus, the new totality is taken into consideration. So therefore, change of remedy, when the symptoms change and the patient has not improved, you again retake the case and you see the new totality and you prescribe on the new totality. In general, when the next remedy is selected, it should be complementary to the first remedy, or remedies that follow well should be taken into consideration. So when you change the remedy, please see in your remedy relationship table that when you have changed the remedy, it is complementary to the first remedy, or it follows well. And also remember that when you change the remedy, when indicated, see that the next suitable remedy doesn't bear an inimical or antidotal relationship. So also in the remedy relationship table, you see that whatever second prescription you are giving, it does not antidote the first. Okay, so that is also important. So you have to see whether it is complementary or follows well, and also keep in mind that it should not be inimical or antidotal in relationship. It is worth remembering that when the case ceases to progress any further, and before you try to change the remedy, the miasmatic history or the load has to be taken into consideration. So again, do not also be in a hurry to change the remedy. It is worth taking into account the miasmatic load of the patient. So when you take into the consideration the miasmatic history or the miasmatic load, a nosode should be introduced, which often restores the sensitivity to the constitutional remedy. So you introduce a nosode, and often this will pave the way to cure. Use of antidote. In homeopathy, we can antidote reactions that are unfavorable to the patient. So when do we antidote? We antidote when new symptoms appear in the case. So this is a very positive point, no, for antidoting, because if new symptoms appear, it shows that the patient is proving the drug and you have repeated it too often. So it is an unfavorable or undesirable reaction, therefore you have to antidote. Or there's a severe aggravation by the first prescription. Or after giving the first prescription, the patient is totally aggravated. He is not feeling better, he is feeling worse. So at that time, you at once antidote it. So that it shows that you're on the wrong track. Or it may cause an killer's aggravation, as in Kent's remedy reaction, first reaction, prolonged aggravation will fallen and decline health of the patient. So in such an instance also, when a killer's aggravation takes place, you know that it is an incurable case, there's advanced pathology, you have given a high potency, and you have given, and probably you have also repeated it frequently. So in such instances, at once stop the remedy, antidote, retake the case, and give the second best remedy if the totality is changed, or if the totality remains the same, give the first indicated remedy in a low potency, only one dose. Symptom disappear opposite to Herring's law of direction of cure. So if symptoms disappear in the opposite direction of Herring's law of cure, definitely you know that you're on the wrong track. You have to antidote it. And when disease travels from the periphery to the center, that also you know that disease travels from less important organs to the more important organs, or from the periphery to the center. That time you have to at once have to also antidote. So that's all for today's video. Please stay tuned for more. Second part will come up soon. And if you like my video, please do subscribe, share, like, comment, and forward. Thank you very much.